This is the brand new iPhone 14 Pro Max, and I've been daily driving this phone for about a month now, and today I'll be reviewing it and answering the question, should you upgrade? Hello everyone and welcome to the Brian Miller Tech channel. If you find yourself enjoying this video, give it a thumbs up. It really makes a big difference. Now, every year there are three main changes or differences that Apple makes each year to their iPhone models, and those being the internals, the display, and the cameras. So let's discover what's new on the inside. With the new iPhone 14 Pro series comes a new chip in the A16 Bionic, which is strangely absent from the base model 14 in favor of the A15, which was introduced last year. I'm guessing the main reason for this decision is the simple fact that the A16 isn't all that much more powerful than the A15. Considering that in the unveiling, Apple didn't even compare it to the A15, instead they compared it to the A13, which came out in 2019 with the iPhone 11 series. But make no mistake, this phone is fast. Really fast. Everything from browsing to scrolling through social media to playing mobile games like Genshin Impact or Call of Duty Mobile runs amazingly. So while technically it might not be a huge leap from the A15, it doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. The A15 is still incredibly powerful and even more so than the latest Qualcomm Snapdragon chips. But let's get into the specs here. The A16 is built on a 4nm process and has a 6-core CPU with 2 high-performance cores and 4 high-efficiency cores. It has a new 16-core neural engine that handles nearly 17 trillion operations per second, which is very important for powering the computational photography in these new phones. And it also has a 5-core GPU. Now, if you're wondering what all that tech babble really means, basically this chip is really powerful, but also importantly, really power efficient, which means even when you're doing all of your daily smartphone activities, the battery life will be superb. And it is. The battery life on this phone just smashes my 12 Pro Max. On my old phone, I would barely make it to the end of the day, ending at around 15% or so. But on the 14 Pro Max, even with the always-on display turned on, it can end the day on like 35%, which is unreal. Now, during Apple's unveiling for the iPhone 14 series, they really focused on safety. And there are two brand new safety features coming with this phone, those being crash detection and emergency SOS via satellite. Crash detection is pretty self-explanatory. The phone uses a high G-force accelerometer to detect extreme accelerations or decelerations up to 256 Gs of force, and it uses the microphones built in to detect loud crashing noises. Once the phone realizes you've been in a crash, a prompt will show up on the screen, and if you don't respond, the phone will contact emergency services, ping them your location, and notify your emergency contacts. The most interesting one for me, though, is that new emergency SOS via satellite feature. Apple just released this a couple of days before this recording, so I was able to try out the demo and show it to you. So basically, in the antennas of the iPhone, there is now built-in satellite antennas, but since they are really small, the bandwidth and the direction of the antennas is also very small. So what Apple has done here is to show you in software where the satellite is and where to direct your phone to connect. Once connected, you can send important information such as your location and what emergency situation you're in. And now with satellite connectivity, you can ping your location to your family members in case you're in a rural area with no cell connection, so they can know exactly where you are. Hopefully no one will have to use these features anytime soon, but having them there is a nice sense of security that you can reach the people that can help you in a serious situation. So in the A16, there's now a dedicated display engine, and it enables a few new features. Now with a 6.7-inch Super Retina XDR LTPO OLED display and adaptive ProMotion technology from 1 Hz to 120 Hz, it enables the mentioned always-on display. This feature has been on Android for years, and a lot of people were excited to see what Apple's version of it would look like. But this interpretation of this decade-old feature has some nice pros, but very Apple cons. One of the pros is live activities work even with the always-on display. So a real use case that I've used for this is glancing at my phone while a sports live activity was on, and being updated live play-by-play and seeing the score while my phone was locked, which was awesome. But one of the cons is you can still see your wallpaper and notifications when it's on, and it's a bit distracting. The brightness is also way too bright in my opinion. Now, one way around this is to create a new focus mode and name it whatever you'd like. Make a new lock screen and have the wallpaper be pure black. I made the color of the font purple, figures. And then I linked the lock screen to the new focus mode. When activated, it turns on that lock screen and the always on display just looks a lot better. And to get back to your old lock screen, you just turn the focus mode off. It's actually pretty neat. But most of the time I turn it off because it's not really for me. Luckily for me though, Apple seems to be testing turning off the wallpaper notifications in iOS betas. So hopefully in an official release soon, it'll be out for everybody. But another great addition to the screen is it can now go up to 2000 nits in direct sunlight. I love this mainly because I have a MagSafe stand in my car, and when I need to drive somewhere, I'll use Apple Maps on my phone and the screen is so bright and I can see it clearly. It's great. What's also great is the new face of the iPhone, the dynamic island. Now, silly name aside, this is a genuinely really cool feature and it looks great. My favorite part definitely is all the animations handled by that display engine I mentioned before. They're just so full of life and it makes it fun to interact with. And you will be interacting with it a lot because Apple has moved all of the system alerts and notifications to the dynamic island. Those include incoming calls, Face ID, AirPods connected, charging, AirDrop, and the silent switch, just to name a few. Another added feature is live activities in the island. So, for example, any app that uses the Now Playing API, music controls will be found in the island with a long press. If you tap on it, it will take it to that app. You can have multiple apps there too, so say you have a timer and a map directions going on at the same time. Two of the bubbles will float in the island and you can tap either one to go to the app or long press for whatever function you want. So basically, low key, it can become a pretty sweet app switcher that's just there at all times. But this isn't just locked down to Apple apps, of course. Third-party devs have already come out with some pretty cool implementations. The same app that I use for the sports live activities, called Sports Alerts, has a really nice one where the score and the icon of each team is on either side of the island, and it works and looks great. And now the mic and camera indicators have been moved to the cutout in between the camera and the Face ID sensors. Except for when you're in a phone call while on the home screen or an app and it's on the far right for some reason. That's weird. But I do think overall the dynamic island is a genuinely good feature. But itself alone shouldn't be the reason to get this phone. So, as everyone can probably tell, the Pro phones from Apple are all about the cameras, and deservedly so. This year, Apple has made some key and exciting changes, such as finally increasing the megapixel count on the main sensor to 48 megapixels from 12 megapixels, which has been the same size since the iPhone 6s from 2015. And thanks to this new sensor, the camera bump is absolutely huge and table wobble is now the worst it's ever been. But having that higher megapixel count is a worthy trade-off in my opinion. Now, of course, megapixels aren't everything, but it's more about what the larger sensor enables now. So here's the specs. It's a 48 megapixel sensor that is 65% larger than what I had with my iPhone 12 Pro Max. It has second gen sensor shift optical image stabilization, has 100% focus pixels, and is paired with an f1.78 aperture lens. So this new 48 megapixel sensor will bend down all of the regular photos to 12 megapixels. So we still get the benefits of the larger sensor, but at a small 12 megapixel file size. There's overall more sharpness to each image, and the larger pixels can capture more light, so there's a slight improvement to low light photography. I think my favorite thing about this bigger sensor though is the nice natural bokeh effect now on close-up subjects. So even without portrait mode on, there's just a nice blur around the subject and it looks nice. Now, if you want the full 48 megapixel size, you can still do that through Apple Pro RAW. Now, I really don't know how to edit photos in Lightroom, but I did take some example photos to show how much detail the sensor can capture. One complaint I have is that the minimal focus distance is terrible. So now more often than not, when you want to get closer to your subject, the macro mode turns on to stay in focus. But I mean, speaking of that macro mode though, it is definitely my favorite camera feature ever. I've spent probably way too much time taking pictures of just a bunch of random objects in my house just to see that incredible close-up detail thanks to that really short minimal focus distance on this 12 megapixel ultra wide. It's great, and it's just fun to see the results after you snap the photo. Ultra wide photography is always fun to use and looks great on this phone. Sure, the detail isn't going to be as sharp as the main camera, but if you feel you can't fit as much into the frame as you want, it's a nice to have. On the front of the 12 Pro Max is the new 12 megapixel selfie camera that now has autofocus for the first time apparently. Which, I mean, I never knew the old iPhone selfies cameras didn't have that, but it's here now. And it's good. There's not a lot of noise and there's a lot of detail, so it is a really good selfie camera. Now, in terms of the zoom in this phone, we have a new 2x button in the camera now. And that option just basically crops into the middle 12 megapixels of that 48 megapixel sensor. This technically isn't digital zoom, so there's still a lot of detail in these shots. The other option is the 12 megapixel telephoto camera that optically zooms into a 3x optical zoom and has 15x digital zoom. I don't really find myself using this camera unless I have to zoom in. Many Android phones now do this much better, like the S22 Ultra with its 10x optical zoom and 100x digital zoom that somehow still holds detail. So I think Apple really needs to update the telephoto camera because it's been lagging behind for a while now, and it could use the upgrade. Now, let's talk about video, my favorite part. For starters, every camera can record 4K at 60 frames per second, and it looks fantastic. The colors look accurate, and the detail is unmatched compared to the competition and even my old 12 Pro Max. The natural bokeh effect from the larger sensor translates well into the video, and looks even more DSLR-like than ever before. Cinematic mode also had a nice upgrade this year. Apple bumped the resolution up to 4K from 1080p, and the edge detection is much better now and, well, actually usable. Now, my favorite camera feature, the macro mode, is also here for video, and honestly, it's a lifesaver. If I want to film something super close, like I did for the 14-inch MacBook Pro review, and by the way, you should watch that, it's a good review. Just being able to get up close and still have a lot of detail there and just a cool shot is honestly pretty awesome, and it's a game changer for me. Now, the brand new feature video-wise for this phone is the brand new action mode, and it's really great for high movement recording and works pretty well. There is a heavy crop, but the result is pretty insane and it looks really stable. But overall, what do I think of the photos and the videos this phone can take? Well, I'm very impressed with how versatile and great these cameras are. These cameras has helped me capture shots that I just couldn't with my 12 Pro Max, and has helped me make even better videos for this channel. I love these cameras, and I think it would be a legitimate reason to upgrade. So, should you upgrade? It really depends on what phone you're coming from. I believe that if you have an 11 series iPhone or older, you should definitely upgrade. You get the new flat edge design, ProMotion, and a big camera and battery life upgrade. However though, if you have a 12 Pro series, it's a little bit different. While the 12 still has a 60Hz screen, and that's pretty rough, the cameras and performance of the 12s and 12 Pro are just still phenomenal. I would only upgrade if you are having battery life issues or just really need a high refresh rate screen. But what if you have a 13 Pro? No, it's not worth the upgrade. Mainly because a 13 Pro and 14 Pro are very similar, and also it came out last year. Just keep it. It's still great. But overall, this is a really, really good phone. It has the best camera out of any smartphone, one of, if not the best display, and the best performance in battery life I've ever seen in a phone. Really, the only thing that might be a problem with this phone for certain people is the fact that it runs iOS. But at least to me, iOS 16 is a great update that brings a lot of necessary changes, like the new lock screen and live activities that can pull Android users in to at least see how good the other side could be. I get some people don't want to change entire ecosystems in fear of compatibility issues. I get that. But the Apple ecosystem has been, by far, amazing in my experience. So I think this is the perfect device to get started with. Thank you to everyone here still watching this video. While you're here, go ahead, subscribe. I'm trying to reach 400 subs by the end of this month, and I can't do it without your help. Plus, it really helps out the channel. Click the links to my socials in the description if you want to support me there as well. And again, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video.